Yo, 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 yo. What's up, Kwanza Global family? Today is another episode, and today we are on episode 9. The title of this episode is going to be called Freedom. So, we're talking about freedom today, and we're just going to discuss or try to define what that really means in regards to going after your dreams and just living life on the daily, what freedom, how that applies to our daily lives. So let's talk about what is freedom. Freedom is basically the ability to do whatever it is you want to do or say or however you want to think or move, whatever action you want to take, you're able to do it without restriction or constraint, without anyone hindering you, without anyone telling you, or rather not telling you, but forcing you not to do it. You know, you're not put in a position where you're being pretty much being pushed back from doing or taking action from whatever it is you're trying to do. So freedom is that ability to I mean, it's in the word, to be free, to be out. You're not in a box. You're out of the box. You can step out of that box and be whatever it is, you want to be. Create. You're not only allowed to do this one thing, or only allowed to think in only this certain way, or believe in only this type of idea. You're able to you're able to go out of that box. That is what freedom. That's a way a way I can describe what freedom is. When it comes to going after going after your dream, or pursuing that passion that you have, doing what it is you love to do, freedom is very important in that aspect. It's important. And another thing that I think is a dynamic within this conversation is the fact that we have that freedom. A lot of us have that freedom in the sense that we're not being forced to by anyone to do what we don't want to do, even though we may think so. So in other words, I think we can limit ourselves in our own mind, and also taking on what others are saying or what others think, and then with that we're not exercising our freedom. So we're not exercising our freedom even though we have it. So we have the freedom to take action, to think out of the box, to have solutions to various problems, or to do what it is we want to do what it is we love to do. So we have that ability, we have that We have the opportunity, we have the time, we have the freedom to do what we actually would love to set out to do for some of us, but that freedom that we do have, we're not exercising it. Now that is a problem because you have the freedom to do what you would love to do, to chase your dream, to go after your dream, to make that vision become a reality, to really make that into something that's real, to bring that into fruition. We have the ability to do that. We have the ability, we have the opportunity, we have the freedom to do that, but we're not exercising it. So freedom is really important when it comes to, I mean, when it comes to going after your dreams and really doing what you love. Freedom is, and it's imperative. It is crucial. It is that's that has to be there, and you also have to understand it, and not only understand it but also recognize it. Because in this case that we're speaking of, people may understand what freedom is, can understand it, could explain it to you, can understand what freedom is, and simply put, it's the fact to be, to be free, just to be straight up and simple about it, but to recognize it and to exercise it, is totally different. And for some of us, exercising it, you know, you're not we're not exercising it, because if you were, your actions, the way you think, the way you act, the way you go about things would be different. Because if you're going after your dream and whatever you love, no matter what situation you're in, whatever circumstance, whatever you're, you know, as nothing happens overnight. So it doesn't. There's you still have to be able to, navigate, you know, freely, and not put yourself in a box where you're, essentially not exercising your freedom in trying to, progress and trying to really get to, each and every day, move forward and get closer and closer to achieving and reaching your goals, and, pursuing and you know, living out that dream, living in your purpose. So in living in your purpose, it's imperative to understand that you have to exercise the freedom that you have. And especially, when you're living in your purpose, you can't limit yourself, because limiting yourself will only, you'll you'll you're putting yourself in a box, essentially. you know as we mentioned, freedom is being able to come out of that box, out of that restraint, that enclosure. You're not enclosed. You can't have freedom and be enclosed, right? You can't. That's the opposite of freedom. If you're in a box and it's only, there's a limit. So if you go to one end of the box, if you go up, down, side to side, or to the corners of the box, that's all you can do. That's all you can go to. That's as far as it is. And with that, you're selling yourself short, because you're not being able to maximize. You're not being able to go beyond what God has given you in your heart to really do with your life, to to the things you want to do with purpose, with intent, and really, you know, really take on, you're not able to do so as effectively or as, you know, powerfully with, if you don't have that, if you don't recognize and exercise that freedom. You have to. That's very important. And the thing is, when it comes down to living in your purpose, you really have to understand that, in within that, you're you begin to. I think you gradually and you you progressively see things differently. So you just, to be able to do to wake up with that energy and do what you got to do, and live purposefully and go after it. It requires you to be free. You just it does it it's That's also something that's just has to be there. And despite what everything, so to have that freedom, um also does not having that freedom does not, I think it's also important to realize that freedom does not come from what from the external, if that makes sense. So what other people think, what other people are doing, whatever restrictions that they're placing on you, trying to place on you, rather, whatever restrictions they're trying to place on you, that they're trying to push on you, whatever it is, the external, everything outside does not, does not, you know, you does not have to, does not have to affect freedom for you. It does not. So, because what God has put on your heart, what God has given you, how God has created you, you know, you 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 were already meant to be. You were already created to be free. There was we're not made to be put in a box to be restricted or limited to just average, to just normal, to just getting by, to just, you know, a couple of hours, and that's all you're worth. As far as, you're not just what you're not limited to just being, you're not limited to just being, you're not defined by where you work, by the job you have, by the clothes you wear. Those those are the type of things that the world would have you, if you don't have a certain type of brand on, a certain type of sneakers on, a certain type of, if you don't eat a certain type of food, if you don't, dress a certain way, talk a certain way, think a certain way, this, that, the world will make you think that if you're not acting in, if you're not going towards in some type of way, in, if you're not behaving or doing things in this, going with the crowd, or, following the wave in some fashion, that you're, you're not really living. Everyone talks about, living life, fast or on the edge or you only live once kind of thing. And that's the that has those things have nothing to do with being free. Being free is being able to do what you are called to do, what you were created to do, what God has given you the grace, the opportunity, the love and the capacity to do, which is for and if you and for some of us, if you really understood that, you would understand that you're called to do and are have the capacity and ability to do way more than you're doing now, which should be bring you great joy because where you are now, you could be even so much more. That's being free. So you're able to wherever you're at now. I'm telling you, whatever you love to do now, whatever you're doing now, whether it's art, whether it's acting, whether it's singing, whether it's sports, these and these are just general things. You're able to you could be acting and you could be just as good in sports, you can be just as good in music, you can be just as good in um ministering, you can be just as good in doing handiwork. You, there's so many things that we have the ability that God has graced us to be able to do, gave us the opportunity to do, has gave us the talents and the gifts to be able to do, and essentially we're coming back and we're just sticking to the basics or sticking to the same old or sticking to we're not growing. Why aren't we growing? And the reason we're not growing is because we're not recognizing and exercising that freedom that we truly have, that God has already given us. We have that freedom, but we're not exercising it. We're not taking it and actually, living in it. You know, freedom has nothing to do with trying to do anything in the sense of trying to do anything and everything recklessly, because that's what sometimes freedom gets misconstrued. It becomes about trying to being able to do whatever, and that's the problem. What is whatever? If you're How is that truly freedom if you're trying to do whatever? Because in trying to do whatever, or believing that freedom is being able to do whatever, air quotes around whatever, you're not essentially YOLO is just living recklessly or just doing things just to do things. If you really think about it, people say, "Come on, YOLO," but why? What is that is not a reason or a justification just to do things. That now goes outside of doing things purposefully, doing things with intent, doing things with a reason. And that doesn't mean every single thing you do is like, it's like a concrete, you know. But being practical, it's when you have something, when you're living in purpose, and you have a, you know, a why for the thing, for something that for the dream you're trying to achieve, and whatever you're doing in your life, of course, let me go back to Kwanza Global here. There's a reason behind this. Again, this is going to be global. Authenticity, purpose, and inspiration. You have to realize, you have to understand that God has created you to be you. You have to understand that. You have to be real about that. That's real. That's authentic. Be you. Be who God has created you to be, not what the TV or your family or your friends or um you know, and even what sometimes you make yourself think you are. No, God has created you in a special and wonderful and unique way. Don't hide that or um, diminish your, your light and your potential and your calling and put that to the wayside. Because now you're being inauthentic. You're going against who you really are. And we're about that authenticity. We're about that purpose. Because once you realize who God has created you to be, being you, who you are, you know, the creator, we are the creation, who God has created you to be. Going back to that, understanding that, we'll be able to, going back to the source, which is God, and understanding that and talking to Him about that and being sincere about that, being genuine about that. You know, once we really embrace, being real with ourselves, living in purpose is such a different, we're talking different level here. And then you're able to live in your purpose. You're able to live in your purpose, and then, in your actions and everything that you do and all of that, people are inspired. And then that cycle continues. We want to make that a global thing. Now, with that type of dream, with that vision, with that purpose, I can't, and I will not, and just go out and just do things for the sake, because of just you know, because that's always something that's on my mind. What I'm doing, what I'm about, that's part of my daily life. It's not something I do from time to time. It's not something I just think about every other week or, every other, as time passes by. This is just, it's what I'm living. So it's what we're about. It's what we're living. It's what we do each and every day. It's a part of us. It's a part of our DNA. So because of that, we do not freedom. We understand that freedom is not. We recognize that freedom is not in just doing things just to do things or doing things recklessly. Just with reckless abandon, because there's no direction in that. You understand? So how can that be freedom if you have no direction? Because if you have no direction, you're lost. And if you're lost, you're essentially confused, because there's confusion that lies there because you don't know which way to go. It could be left, it could be right, it could be up, it could be down, it could be north, it could be east, it could be west. You could say all the northwest, east, west, southwest. You could say all the directions you want. It's now you don't know where to go. That's essentially saying, that's what the saying "you only live once" comes down to. Because then you're like, it's like whatever. It's like there's nothing to gain from this. That's what you're pretty much saying, and that's not true. There's a lot to gain. There's a legacy. There's a reward that comes, even after, even after this life. There is a reward. There is a gain. Um, it's just a fact, and that is the truth. And so there is no freedom in just doing things just to do things. There's no direction in that. And how is that truly freedom if you don't even you're lost? Because when you're lost, you could be going in a certain direction, and you're not doing anything. I mean, to keep it real, you're not doing anything. You're not making an impact. You're not growing. You're not progressing. You can be stagnant, and that just is. I don't know how, you can't explain to me how that actually is being free. It's actually contradicting, you know, moving that way. You're not free if you don't even know what to do and where you're going. This has nothing to do with someone telling you, oh, you should do this. No, you know what I mean? Some people get it misconstrued, and then the lines get blurred. It gets warped. The world has a way of doing that. You know, misconstruing and confusing, making people confused and unsure, and kind of believing um, that certain things are this way when they're not. And one of them is freedom. Freedom is not just all over the place. It's just not all over the place. Freedom does not mean being all over the place. But freedom does have order. It has direction. Freedom has, you know, it has a, it makes sense. It's not disorderly. Um, God gave us freedom, and because God gave us freedom, and God is not the author of confusion, nor does He cause disorder. He does everything in His own time, and in His own time is always the perfect time. Is always the right time. It is always the correct time, and therefore, inherently, freedom, by definition, cannot be something that is just haphazard. It's just not. And the world has turned that into something that is haphazard, where it's like to be free, you get to just say and do and think anything you want, and who cares what anyone thinks or says about it. And that's the problem we have, because then we start to misuse, and abuse freedom, because we think freedom is just to do anything and everything however you think and want to do it. Again, this has nothing to do with anyone telling you. Just because no one is saying oh, you can't do that, or nobody is necessarily, putting you in jail for this, or, and even if they are, that doesn't necessarily mean you can't, we have notable figures in this world who have been put in jail and done this, put in jail and been prosecuted, and all of this for speaking out, and and saying what they have to say, and thinking how they want to think. But that and there've been repercussions that have come because people didn't like that. That didn't stop them. That's freedom. All right, that's freedom. They kept. You know what I mean? They didn't let that. That's why I mentioned the external. Whatever people say or do does not actually affect your freedom. You know, Martin Luther King Jr. threats. Malcolm X. He received threats. Um, you know, come on, guys. We can name multiple people that had danger. You know, that they faced, and they still did what they did. There's freedom in that. There's freedom. That's freedom right there. And they were also living. They were doing things for a purpose. There was freedom in that. Now the thing is, being free. Freedom does not equate to recklessness. Again, so although they again they faced danger, and and were faced with threats, and pretty much death. They still did what they did. But the freedom is the fact that they were not, they had a direction, right? They had a calling, they had a purpose, and that's what they were doing. So freedom was not in the fact that it had nothing to do, freedom, had nothing to do with had nothing to do with them just, Again, it didn't. Freedom has it's outside of that. Freedom isn't something you can someone can take from you if you really think about it. Because if that was the case, then everything MLK did or Malcolm X did, Harriet Tubman did would have been for naught. And that's not the case because if you look at present day, that's just not the case. I don't. You can flip it however way. We're not living in a perfect world, but what they did with their freedom, living in a purpose, affected us greatly, affected the world greatly, and that is a fact. You know, this hasn't even been that long since the times of those those notable people. It has not been that long at all in the grand scheme of things. It has not been that long in history. We don't have to go that far back in history, to see what they did, to see the effect of what they did. So that's freedom right there. What they did, they exercised the freedom they had. They exercised the freedom that God gave us. They were living in, we're talking about Jim Crow era, we're talking about segregation era, we're talking about black and white TV era. We're talking about that time period where it was drastically different than today. They exercised that freedom and they did it well. So freedom has nothing to do with not someone not putting you in jail and you just being able to just say and do whatever recklessly. So people get it misconstrued that freedom is just you being able to just talk out your neck any type of way and be and do anything about it or say anything. No one can't. That's fine. Nobody can tell you that you can't. Nobody can force you not to. But what is the purpose of you just saying anything? That's the thing. MLK was not just saying anything. There's people that probably listen to his, that I know listen to his speeches in school or look it up on YouTube. Same with Malcolm X. Same with all these great people that we don't even, and for some notable figures we don't even know as much about. We can look them up and see, what they've done. And talking about I have a dream speech, that's not just anything. That's not just anything. These interviews that we see, especially with social media, we see so many excerpts and stuff that we see from that happened during that time, like little video clips and all of that. These aren't just regular just things. They're not just saying stuff just to say stuff. There's a specific reason. There's a purpose, there's an intent, there's a reason behind it. And we see that throughout their whole, time that they had on earth. They're that they were they lived in purpose, free, which is why when they received threats, when they were thrown in jail, when they were beaten, when they were spit on, talked against, all of that, everything that they endured, they still continued to do what they did even before, all or before all the hype and all the threats and everything. Even before that even started to pile up, how they were then, as they continued. That's freedom. So they weren't just talking just to talk. Because when you talk just to talk, you know, and there's no direction, do you really have freedom, or you just don't want to be called out? You just don't want to be, um, you know, picked out by not really believing whatever it is you're saying, or not actually being true to what you're saying, and just really just talking just to talk, just because the law gave you freedom of speech and gave you freedom of this. That the law has no, it really has no consequence, or any has no what's the word? It doesn't. What are the words I could say for that? It doesn't actually mean anything if you're not. If what you're saying doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? I mean, you can say whatever. All right, that's fine. Uh, it at the end of the day, it doesn't actually truly equate to freedom. Freedom does not give you just. It has nothing to do with the liberty of just cursing people out, calling people names, um, d- defying authority, um, disrespecting authority, disrespecting people. Freedom has nothing to do with that. It just doesn't. It has nothing to do with that. Really understanding and recognizing that freedom and exercising it appropriately and what it's supposed to be are two different things. You can be free to say and do a lot of things. It does not mean you should. And understanding that is what true freedom is. Because now you're just putting yourself in a box. Not understanding that is you're not recognizing what freedom is. Because if that's all you think freedom is, just being able to say all types of nonsense or do any types of nonsense, well, I mean, I don't know. It's what a waste. I don't know. It's a waste. It's just a waste. It's just a waste. I don't know how that's as simple as I can say. It's just a waste. But having direction, and a focus and a determination and all centered in purpose and understanding you have a purpose, you have a reason for being here, and so many reasons for why you can't quit. That's freedom. Understanding that God has given you a vision, has placed something on your heart, and now you're taking that on and going after it each and every day. Freedom. Freedom. There's freedom in that. There is freedom in that. There's direction in that. You're not lost. You're not confused. You're not. You're not. You're not haphazard. You're not reckless. You know exactly what it is you're about. you know. You know what it is you're about, and you're not just going by off. You're not just doing things without a care in the world. You're just not. So that is that is exactly why you have to understand and recognize the importance of freedom. The importance of freedom. But essentially the whole, scope of it, freedom has nothing. It is not about just doing and saying and thinking whatever and whenever, and you know what I mean. There's no and just being all over the place. You know what I mean? You can't even explain it. Can't even tell it to you. Just cause you know what I mean. You can't even back it up each and every day. Why you wouldn't even be able to back it up. You wouldn't be able to back it up and defend it each and every day and live for it. What by your words and your actions. If you can't live by your words and your actions, how are you truly free? If someone were to say, why do you do what you do? Why do you say what you say? Why do you live the way you live? Why do you talk the way you talk? Why do you do the things that you do? You know, just generally speaking, if someone just, you know what I mean, like, if you're not living purposefully, and someone asks you that, it'd be hard to defend. It'd be hard to support. It'd be hard to explain. It'd be hard to really go into it, or you wouldn't really know what to say at all, or really, right? You wouldn't have answers for that, or uh, the answers really wouldn't really be of, it wouldn't be of substance. I think that true freedom is just having that assurance and that realization and that confidence in knowing who you are, knowing who you are, what you're about. And people could ask you and you're sure of it, and people may not even have to ask you. They already know what you're about. They might even tell you, and that's the inspiration part. They'll tell you, it's like this, I'm inspired because this is what you're about, and this is why I am also about blah blah blah. They also want to have that freedom in being able to do more. you know, do more, because isn't that something to you? The fact that you inspire others, isn't that is it doesn't that like, look how freedom works when you think of it. That's freedom. You're living purposefully. You're living with intent. You're living, you know, you know, eyes straight forward, eyes ahead. You're not just doing things just to do things. You're not. There's no YOLO. There's no YOLO at all. There's no. There's a reason behind this. There's a purpose behind it. This is bigger than me. This is a legacy that's going to be left. There's an impact that's going to be left. This is something that's going to be left for generations. This is something that is not going. That is not about me. This is something that I'm taking on. This is something that is. I am in my. This is the domain that God has given me, the grace for, that has given me, that's blessed me with. I'm free. And now someone else sees that and is inspired, and now they go out and they take over, and they go they go crazy. They take over. They also go out and conquer and pursue. And they go out and pursue, their calling, that dream, that vision God has given them, and take advantage of those gifts, talents, and abilities that God has given them. And they go out and because you exercise your freedom and recognize your freedom correctly. Now they're doing that, and guess what? Neither of you are. And there's no hindrance. Just because you're free doesn't mean they can't be free. That's another important thing to understand. My freedom does not affect your freedom. My freedom should not mean you should be any less free or any more free. We're free, period. We're free. We're limitlessly free. God has given us freedom to stretch out. So I inspire you, you inspire me, we inspire each other. We're free. Freedom. Let freedom ring, huh? Right? Let freedom go. Freedom all through. Freedom all through. We're free. You're free. And there's no hindrance. There's no stepping on each other's toes. No. Free. We're free. Period. Just free. Right? Now, someone who just all over the place, think about it. Think about the work that Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr., Harriet Tubman, all these notable figures, these are the ones that are popping up in my head. But of course, you guys, we can come up with notable figures all day. But especially for this example, those three figures that I just mentioned are perfect. Think about that. If just think about it, how could those people were not Malcolm X, MLK, and Harriet Tubman saw and adjusted? They were not free in. They were free, of course, but point blank play, they were free. And because again, what other people are trying to put on you, their limitations, this, that, and third, has nothing to do with your freedom. No, but think of this: in the in, but they were not free in the sense that, of course, Harry Tubman, slave, um, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, segregation area, right? So they were free, but there were people who were not free, right? Neither in, neither in, you know, as far as mentality wise, and also as far as just being able to, go anywhere, to go, go to the bathroom, go to this, just during those, go to the go to any bathroom that they chose, to go to any, um, to go to any part of town, or to this, um, to go to this building or that bank, you know, you guys know the times, right? So so the point there was, or the point there is the fact that these guys realized, how how can how can America, right? This America, the land of the free, right? The home of the brave, and all of this, all these nice words that you want to say, right? That is founded on these great principles, right? Um, you know, guys talk about in God we trust, right? You guys talk about all this, but yet, all right, yet, we're not free in this land, right? Uh, Black people are not our slaves, right? You guys think of us less than. We can't leave these quarters. We have to tend to the land. We have to pick out, do this and that and the third, right? We can't. You don't want us to go to the north because it's free over there. We're able to think out of the box. We're able to do more than just picking this land, right? We're able to drink at that water fountain because it's the same water fountain as this water fountain. The only difference is you want us to not drink out this water fountain for whatever reason because it says whites only. All right. You don't want us to go into that bathroom because it says whites only. You don't want us to go here and there. And yeah, right. So they saw that as okay. All right. So this is the land of the free, home of the brave, and also, and even if you didn't make those claims, or you know what I mean, um, the point of the matter is why. How come you guys being free, white people being free, um, that does not hinder or step on the toes if we are also free. If blacks are also free, if we are also free, if blacks are also free, that has no, uh, that does not harm you guys in any way. You guys might have to get over the fact that you guys are racist. I don't, you know what I mean? But for us, we are taking matters into our own hands, and this is the purpose of why we're here, and we're gonna make sure that when we're gone, in years after, that this nonsense is gonna stop. Because right now, if you really want freedom to reign, you have to understand that your freedom, you having freedom, and us not having freedom, is not true freedom. And not only that, us equally having freedom, you understand that us equally having freedom, um, does not make you, does not make blacks having as much freedom as anyone else, as you white people, does not make you less free, and it does not make us any more or less free. We're free, period. We're free. Free, 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 limitless. So what is the problem here? We got to put an end to that. Think about that. That's an understanding that you don't get if you think freedom is just about being able to step on other people's toes, right? Because that's essentially what some people understand freedom as. Because because people will claim freedom of speech or this that, and they're hating on someone else, so they're essentially trying to people will will justify that they have the right to say or do something, yet in their actions they're trying to hinder someone else's freedom of privacy, someone else's freedom to you know uh to 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 just be able to live in their neighborhood peacefully without being taunted, right? So you want that freedom, but when it comes to you, to someone else, you don't want them to have that freedom. You know, you know what I mean? It's very contradictory, and there's people that believe that's freedom in some way, that they're able to do whatever and whenever, and then, but and yet they literally impede and step on other people's toes and restrict their freedom in that sense. You know what I mean? Um, but if you elevate your thinking, you realize that what other people say and do does not affect your freedom, right? But there's various, you know, um, which is why again, if you understand that what other people are doing and think and they're however wrong they are, that does not and them trying to put their their wild ideologies, beliefs, and their and whatever that they're trying to put on you, limitations, restrictions, whatever it is, which they tried to do to Martin Luther King, Malcolm, and all that stuff. It doesn't affect your freedom, because if it did, their work would have been, it wouldn't have come to what it is today, because MLK and Malcolm X were free. But I'm sure segregation had nothing to do with their freedom. I'm telling you that right now. Because again, if it did, we would still be in our, so they Malcolm X, MLK, and many and various other activists that we can talk about that came after, or during that time as well. You know, they were free, point blank, period. But in that time, everyone around them were not free, because you have to think about it. They they were free, but not everyone around them was not. Because if they were, you know, the people of that day, they would understand that why does there have to be a whites only, black only? You know, why does there have to be a separation? How come blacks have to have, or colored, right? Colored section. Why do there have to be a colored section, a black only section, and a white only section? Why did there have to be segregation for you, right? For you guys to feel free, right? Why did blacks have to be looked at as inferior? Why did blacks have to be looked down upon? Why did blacks have to be separated and, have their own space and, be treated the way they were treated? All this, all of this that we know. If, for white people to be comfortable, to be free, to be, that was their version of freedom, right? That is what they thought was appropriate, was right. How can you truly be free if you have to impede on the rights and the freedom, or try to impede on the freedom, restrict the freedom of someone else, then you're not truly free. And there's something deeper going on. Because if you're so offended, um, you're so intimidated, or felt so attacked, or feel some type of way, period, that you that there had to be segregation and racism, that the prevalent and obvious and straight daily you know evidence of racism going on, that was in that time. And then of course way back during slavery times, you know you have to see that there's no way that you could define that as freedom during that time period. There was no, during, like, as far as the circumstances of the way of life that was going on. So then, because then if you defined freedom based off of the way things are currently, then then you can never really have freedom. You understand? Because if that was the case, then Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Harriet Tubman, we'd still be in the same position, they were in now. As far as segregation or slavery, there would be no progress in that area if freedom really was connected or had to do with your circumstances or the way society is living or behaves or thinks is, or whatever society thinks is right. It just think about that. There's a clear difference between the two. What society thinks is correct and right, what society thinks is true, how society behaves, all of these things, we can't just take that as truth. Because if we did, then all the notable figures that helped, stop segregation and, stop the clear, evident racism that was going on, where, literally, people of all races and types could not, sit together and just talk. We're talking about a totally different world, and I'm glad that some of us were not a part of that time, because man, I couldn't imagine living in a time like that. And it was not that long ago. It was not that long ago at all. We're talking 50s here, 40s, 30s. That is not that long ago. And then we go way back to Harriet Tubman's time. Even that, in the grand scheme of things, that's really not that long ago. And those were terrible times as far as, the way human beings were being treated, right? So you look at that and it's like freedom. Where does it begin? It does not begin on where we currently are in society, how people are treating you, what society thinks is the right thing, how society treats people, how that the external, as we mentioned earlier in the episode, and mentioned a couple of times, does not define what freedom is. It does not affect, or it can affect, yes, but it does not have to define what freedom is for you. You understand? So, but then how can you be free, basically? Well, again, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, when we talk about them, the reason they're so they're notable figures is not because they were driving fancy cars, wearing the latest wearing the latest trendy suits or shoes or anything like that, or but they were living in their purpose. They had a vision, vision, dream, a purpose they had each and every day. They didn't start out that way. And it's something we mentioned before. It's not something you start, but once you find that purpose, once you find your purpose, God has put that, um, placed that dream, who put that dream in your heart, has given you that vision, has, and he's given you, you've seen, he's given you the opportunity, or you take advantage of the opportunities, and because again, we also have to play our part too, and we come to the realization of our purpose, right? That God has placed us here for. Then you're able to that's when freedom can now take its place, because then you're not being pulled by any strings. You're not being pulled by what this person. It's like, no, I have. You know what I mean? It's almost like it's like a platter that's pretty much laid out for you. It's like, here it is. This is what it is. It cannot be denied. It's essentially a truth, the truth that's been given to you by way of you living in your purpose and having this vision and having direction and all of these things that come with it, that allows you to be free. I mean, no one can tell you anything. Nobody can just move you anyhow or do this or that. It really helps you navigate life in a whole different way, honestly. And man, this conversation is so dope. But it's something that it's true. It's true. And I'm telling you, it's true. It just, there's so many things that come with you living in your purpose, with you understanding you have a purpose, realizing you are here for a reason. You're on this earth for a reason, and you have a purpose. You are here on purpose. You're here for a reason. And living out your life knowing that without a doubt, 100% with confidence, right? Things change. You see the world differently. And there's freedom in that, right? There's freedom in realizing that, because your mindset changes. Your mind becomes renewed. God renews your mind. I'm telling you, God will renew your mind. Him and him alone. God will renew your mind. And you just see things differently. There's freedom. There's freedom in that. There's freedom. There's freedom. There's freedom. There's freedom. I'm telling you. There's freedom in that. Who the Son sets free is free indeed. Amen. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. You guys got to understand, like, this is real. This is, I'm telling you, once you experience, each and every episode, we're just building on top of, and these are things that I'm experiencing for myself. So I'm not talking from a perspective of someone else. I wouldn't even be able to talk that deeply about it if I'm talking from the perspective of someone else. At least I don't think I would be able to. But the point is, I'm not. I'm talking from a place of personal experience of me living this. We are living this. So we're coming from a real place, an authentic place. So freedom, really rings. Freedom is evident. Freedom is real. Freedom is there once you have that direction. You're not confused. You're not lost. You're not all over the place. You're free. You're free. You're free. You're free. You're actually free. You're not, it's you're not all over the place. Not haphazard. There's a focus. There's a direction. There's an assurance. There is, firm foundation there. You're free. And, it does wonders when you get to that place, of actual freedom, and, yeah, I mean, we could really go on and on about this even some more. Truly. But yeah, that's episode 9 for you. That's episode 9. That is episode 9 for you. Called It's episode called Freedom. Actually, I'm gonna call it Freedom, and then I'm gonna call it Freedom. Yeah, Freedom. Nah, Freedom, and then in parentheses, what's free. All right, that's what I'm gonna do. That's the title of this episode right here. And the what's free with a question mark. It's called Freedom, aka what, also known as what's free. For real though, what's free? And this is another dope conversation, y'all. I'm glad y'all came to listen again. Another Friday, y'all came to chop it up, hear your boy out, and everything. But yeah, man, we always here, get into these conversations, and man, I thank God for y'all, man. Honestly, all y'all that have been listening from episode 1, however many episodes you listened to so far, however many minutes or seconds you listened to it, I appreciate you. Hope you've gotten something from any one of these episodes, if not all of them. And yeah, man, guys, love y'all, Kwanza Global family. This is episode 9, Freedom, and yeah, this is another great episode. So I'm gonna catch y'all again on the next episode, and until then, much love, peace be with you, and God watch over all my people. Love y'all, man, for real though. And yeah, till episode 10. Love y'all, Kwanza Global. We out. Peace.